A good evening to you all, and thank you for joining us here on today's episode of the Summit. Now, tonight we're going to be turning our attention to one of East Africa's most strategic lifelines, the Northern Corridor. Now, it is the region's most important transit and transport route, connecting Rwanda and other land-linked countries directly to the port of Mombasa and ultimately to global markets. Now, for Rwanda, the Northern Corridor is more than a road network. It is our economic artery. It drives trade, reduces transport costs, as well as enables a faster movement of goods and people, and supports our national vision for connectivity, competitiveness, and regional integration. Now, tonight we're going to be breaking down what the Northern Corridor Transit and Transport Coordination Authority does, its achievements so far, what are its key points in terms of what it wants to achieve, what it means for Rwanda, and the opportunities and challenges ahead. So joining us tonight to dive and dissect into that is Dr. John Deng Dr. Ding, who is the Executive Secretary of the Northern Corridor Transit and Transport Coordination Authority. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Martina, for having me. I'm happy to be here this evening.
Yes, and last but not least, we also have with us Mr. Teddy Kaberuka, who is an economic policy analyst. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So let's dive into it. I'll start with you, Dr. John. Let's begin with the basics. What is the Northern Corridor and why does it matter so much here in Rwanda?
Thank you once again, Martina, for having me this evening, and thank you to viewers for tuning in to this important program. Northern Corridor is a trade route linking the port of Mombasa, the hinterland countries of East and Central Africa. It connects the 5 countries to Indian Ocean trade through port of Mombasa. Northern Corridor Transit and Transport Coordination Authority, an agency that is charged with the responsibility of managing the trade and logistics that is channeled through the Northern Corridor, was established in 1985 by 4 countries, that is Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, and Rwanda. It was joined by DRC in 1987 and South Sudan in 2012. Right now, it is an organization of the 6 countries that is charged with the responsibility of managing over 40 million metric tons that goes through the port of Mombasa, out of which Rwanda receives about 700,000 metric tons a year. So it is as important as such. Our main responsibility is to give land-linked countries a free access to the port of Mombasa, remove non-tariff barriers that might be used or applied upon them to impede trade, so that we're able to reduce cost of doing business, reduce cost of transport, transit time, and increase productivity, so that export is able to move seamlessly to the international market and the import to the hinterland countries. And I think this is what we've been doing, and increasingly we have continued to improve, and that's what we are as an institution. So we believe our main objective is to drive down cost of doing business so that we stimulate productivity within the countries of the Northern Corridor. And Rwanda is doing very well because it's an important country that serves as a transit country to the economy of DRC. It also serves as a destination country to Rwanda in itself. And so for the last 10 years, we have seen an improvement, which is quite exponential, in the production and export of Rwanda products through the port of Mombasa, which to us is a great achievement.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And one of the purposes that the Northern Corridor has is to harmonize transit as well as transport policies among member states. And do you think that has been achieved of late?
Yeah, greatly speaking, Northern Corridor is founded on 4 pillars. The first pillar is transport policy planning that focuses on harmonization of transport-related policies to ensure that drivers are able to have an even landscape that relates to transport policy. So that when you leave Kenya to Kigali, the transport policy network and landscape is predictable. That, to a great extent, our policies speak to each other. The second pillar is custom and trade facilitation that focuses on custom processes and operations. To tell you, Martina, as we speak right now, Rwanda custom processes, which is SCUDA, the custom system, is integrated into something we call Northern Corridor Single Custom Territory Framework. A Rwandese owner of cargo will only clear his good in Mombasa and take only one bone. That bone will be used to transit through Kenya, Uganda, and is only removed on entry to Rwanda. So you do not have to have multiple declarations. To us, that is a great achievement because then there is a seamless mobility of goods without interruption. The second item is infrastructure development and management, of which the Northern Corridor, that focuses on the development of infrastructure that supports Northern Corridor trade. So we focus on roads, on promotion of inland water transport, on railway line, and at this point in time, Rwanda as a country has progressed so much in keeping the standards of 950 kilometers of roads that are geofenced for the Northern Corridor logistics. The quality is seamless. We have been supporting RTDA. We supply the equipment that is used to monitor the surface performance of the roads, and roads are quite well maintained in Rwanda. We have also seen, we've been supporting Rwanda, we continue to support Rwanda in development of railway policies in preparation for the development and the institutional arrangements. As we speak currently, we are supporting RTDA in developing the inland water transport policy. And our hope is that Lake Kivu, which is one of the biggest economies when it comes to transportation, because trade between DRC and Rwanda, about 75% of it goes through Lake Kivu. So Rwanda, as a country, is now establishing an agency that will be supporting inland water transport. And that is, in the long term, we wish to connect Tanganyika and Kivu through Ruzizi. We are working now in supporting RTDA in developing policies so the government is able to have its own intervention founded on stable policies. On private sector investment promotion, which is one pillar, we've been able to support the government of Rwanda in developing a PPP law, which is a framework for which private investment is guided. So to a great extent, we have done so much in harmonizing the trade facilitation and transport policies along the corridor and across the 6 countries.
Thank you for elaborating on that. Over to you, Mr. Teddy. From an economic perspective, how has the Northern Corridor contributed to Rwanda's trade and connectivity thus far?
Well, actually, for the sake of our viewers, let's also introduce them like the Northern Corridor and the Central Corridor, because they may, some
confuse
of them may not know what is Central, what is Northern Corridor. So the Northern Corridor connects Rwanda, Uganda, and then Kenya via Mombasa port. And then the Central is Rwanda, Tanzania, and then Dar es Salaam. So I would say geographically, the Northern Corridor is the longest. But strategically, I think we have more traffic there because of so many reasons. But one of them is related to the service people get, and also all this policy and policy framework in place that the private sector, when they import, when they export, things are much smoother there. And I would say that the private sector works in a very different dynamics. When things work better in private sector, that's where people go. It doesn't wait for government to give instruction. So that's why the country decided to have the two options, the Central and Northern Corridor. But what we can see, if you see the amount of truck, connecting to the East Coasts, many of them use the Northern Corridor, which is a very good sign. We can congratulate the team managing that framework. They are both playing politics, but also policy. And they are addressing some of the issues we used to have, some years back, when, for instance, some trucks could go and make 7 days on the road, with so many barriers, so many regulations, paperwork. I remember like 15 years ago, a truck would have like 20 or 30 type of forms to be filled. But today things went electronic. The digitalization has also solved the problem. And I like the way on the screen they displayed the amount of trucks coming to Rwanda. They say, was it 7% of the cargoes are using the Northern Corridor, which means in terms of efficiency, the private sector find more benefit to use the northern corridor than the central corridor. But also, I would also look at it from a political perspective. We've seen so many instability, so many problems related to the domestic policy, yes, domestic politics. So in case something happened in one country, Rwanda has option to use the other option. I mean, a practical case was a very recent post-violence in Tanzania. Mm-hmm. The only way Rwanda had was to use the northern corridor. And the same happened for the northern corridor in 2013 Kenya. So those are like alternative for Rwanda. And I think the more this framework are working properly, it gives a room for our countries at least to be free from having shortage of cargoes. And when people see the trucks on the road, they think it's that simple. But there is a rigorous work to define policy, to put in place different instruments so that each country can implement them and then make simpler the processes. Because what makes losses in private sector is to have a very heavy bureaucracy. But if you remove those barriers, actually they call it non-tariff barrier, because they are not written anywhere, but you can spend like 2 days waiting for a paper to be sent somewhere. Mm-hmm. But an organization like this help to harmonize the processes, and then people do their businesses much easier.
Thank you very much for highlighting that, especially the progress that we have seen in terms of transportation, the logistics that has to go into that, the signing of papers, but also moving digitally. So it's great to see the progress. And back to you, Dr. John. Over the years, what are some key achievements that the Northern Corridor is most proud of, especially working with Rwanda?
Yeah, thank you again, Martina. We have quite a number of achievements. As mentioned by my colleague, the first achievement is to reduce the transit time from the port of Mombasa to Kigali. It would take more than a week for the truck to move from Mombasa to Kigali before 2010. And over the last 10 years, we have witnessed now it takes about 60 hours to reach Malaba, which used to be about 120 hours, and to another 48 hours to reach Gatuna or Mirama Hills or Kajitumba. So as we speak right now, the amount of time taken for a truck to move from Mombasa to Kigali has been halved, which is incredibly an achievement when it comes to business. That has equally impacted on the cost of transportation. Our target has been to reduce the cost of transport to be $1 per kilometer per ton. When the Northern Corridor started advancing these policies, to come to Rwanda, you would pay about $4.3 per kilometer per ton. And that was quite expensive for the business community and even for the consumers. As we speak right now, we are around 1.2, 1.1. And we are still advancing to ensure that this comes below $1 per kilometer per ton. That is a great achievement. Now that is on the intervention, that is now on the trade facilitation. And that has to do, as you mentioned, on digitization of trade, integration of custom processes, and continuous removal of non-tariff barriers. And that means sensitization of communities and countries along the way. And whenever we identify a non-tariff barrier, we call the country concerned, the authorities concerned, and the person that tries to interfere with trade, for example, is called on the spot. We are continuously in touch with the Minister of Infrastructure in Rwanda. And in Kenya, there are authorities that are actually, they are authorized or obligated to facilitate trade. We are constantly in touch, and whenever there is a problem, we report it, we intervene. On the achievement, that is on the automation of custom processes. We have, as I told you earlier on, we have been supporting the infrastructure development and performance of the roads. First of all, we have been using the framework of the Northern Corridor and trade data to work with the government of Rwanda to attract donors. So the government of Rwanda can only use economic data to engage with the World Bank and other development partners to fund its road agency. So when you see a lot of contractors on the roads, it is a framework. There has to be economic justification for investment. Based on what we are doing and the efficiency that's achieved and exercised within the government of Rwanda, the combination of the trade data plus how the government of Rwanda is managing its own affairs has been able to be the basis on which the donors are trooping to Rwanda to be able to fund infrastructure. To us, we take pride in that at the Northern Corridor. Thirdly, as I mentioned earlier on, we have been working now under what we call the Regional Infrastructure Master Plan to prepare Rwanda for the development of standard gauge railway. Now we are working with the Minister of Infrastructure to prepare policies and to organize institutions that will be ready now to implement railway development, standard gauge railway development once it has reached Kagitumba. Currently we are at Naivasha, and Naivasha is going to come to the border. Uganda is already done the groundbreaking from Malaba to Kampala, and thereafter it will come to the border of Rwanda and Uganda. And what we are doing generally, as we continue to develop infrastructure, we also continue to eliminate non-tariff barriers by developing inland ports. Right now, Rwanda has a piece of land given to it by the government of Kenya in Naivasha. That's about 600 kilometers from Mombasa. The Northern Corridor has just done the feasibility studies and design, and we plan by April next year to work with the government of Rwanda to bring a development agency, or rather an investor, to have it developed. The goods of Rwanda by then will be actually CIF. That means cost on freight. It will be whenever you bring your good either from Japan, it will be downloaded in Naivasha, or it will be offloaded in Naivasha. When you pick it from Naivasha, it is less than 920 kilometers, 957 kilometers from Naivasha to Kigali. You will have reduced the number of interactions between the people and the trade. And that means reducing non-tariff barriers. So by then, our target is as Executive Secretary, my target is to take as much cargo of Rwanda as possible. Right now, we are about, when I came to office, it was at 55%. Now we are at 70%. I want to make it 90%, so that Mombasa becomes the preferred port, not by force, but by efficiency, by intervention, by making it the most preferred for the people of Rwanda. Yes. One another thing we have done is we have conducted a road safety campaign. First of all, what we did was to do black spot mapping along all the roads in Rwanda that are geofenced for the purpose of Northern Corridor logistics, all the way from Gatuna to Rubavu, and we did all the way to Kanyaru. And we were able to develop road safety management guidelines for the region. And Rwanda has now dovetailed some of the policies for the local application. This was followed by now the road safety campaign that we conducted in September last year. And we were able to go around saying, Grayo Amahoro. Grayo Amahoro. So we went all over the country, interacting with the population, advocating on safety, on safe driving on our roads. And we brought agencies together, that's the Transporter Association, the Traffic Police, the ministries who are policy, who are policy developers and regulators, and all the agencies concerned. And I think it has gone a long way in improving road safety along the Northern Corridor in Rwanda, although Rwanda already is doing so well in terms of road safety management, because you guys are at around 5% per 10,000. Other countries are about 32, 36. So, but still, one life loss is too painful for a country. So we continue to improve efficiency on our roads in that respect. One thing we have also done, we have tapped into we have developed Northern Corridor Business Information Portal, which is a virtual market for the Northern Corridor region. What that does is that all the countries, private sector, they have registered business practitioners and the commodities are posted on this. Then the buyers, the potential buyers, are also made to sign into this virtual market. So you have a virtual market where a buyer and a seller meet within the Northern Corridor. And now the biggest beneficiary is Rwanda, because Rwanda is now becoming an industrial hub, where you prepare a lot of products for the international market. You're one of the countries that is export focused, and that is something that we have been proud of, and we continue to advocate it. To us, the moment you have achieved a balance of trade, where your exports and imports are more than 6%, because now in the Northern Corridor we are still at 70%, import-export matrix. So we intend to promote the side that we strike a trade of balance, a balance of trade of 50-50. And Rwanda is doing very well on that, and it's taking advantage of our interventions because of the preparedness of the infrastructure and the institutions. Another intervention that we are working on is e-mobility, introduction of electric vehicles. Northern Corridor currently is conducting electrification readiness for the region. That is funded by the European Union through GIZ to the tune of about 700,000 euros. This is going to actually map out the landscape for electrification for the region. We shall look at the institutional arrangements and readiness. We'll look at the policies that are in place. We'll look at the operational capacity of different interveners, including the private sector. And then also the distribution of power and the availability of power, and even the availability of charging stations. Once we have this, we shall develop a roadmap of implementation of e-mobility. To me, this is preparing our region for the next 100 years where the world will be. And so once we have the landscape clear, then areas of intervention will be identified based on each country. And of course, we all understand that all the countries are not at the same level. So we shall apply what we call variable geometry. Each country will be treated based on its level of progress. As we speak now, our statistics show that Rwanda has more electric vehicles in the market space compared to any other country, followed by Kenya. And to us, that's a good indicator. It's something we can build on. We can even continue to support the framework so that development is actually taken upon in this direction. So there's much more that I can mention. Yesterday, I was at Rukomo, went all the way to Gishumbi and towards Nyagitare. We're trying to see how to take the traffic that goes to DRC off Kigali. So that when you come through Kajitumba, you go all the way to Rubavu through the road that is just through Rukomo. That traffic needs to be managed and needs to be supported. So Northern Corridor is planning to put up a truck holding yard that will house all the services so that the truck holders can comfortably go there, park their traffic, their trucks, and the cargo is safe. And they can have the services they need to support the trade. So we continue to aspire for more intervention in Rwanda, and I'm happy to report that the government of Rwanda has been very proactive in engaging with international partners and the Northern Corridor to make life easier for its population. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for elaborating on some of the proud moments that you've had in terms of working with Rwanda, especially hearing the statistics, how much it has done for the import and exportation, as well as make sure that there's a balance, which is what we're striving to do. So it's always great to hear.
Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Teddy. Where do you believe greater efficiency can still be achieved, whether it is at the borders, in logistics, infrastructure, or in policy implementation?
One was the digitalization.
Yes.
The more we digitalize all the processes, the more things get much easier. And transparency is also something very important. Another sector which I think the Secretariat need to really put emphasis is shifting to the electrical. Because it has been tested that when the economy goes to green, one, you protect the environment, but also you cut costs for the transport. So I'm sure everyone cries when there is a price fluctuation of petrol because of our transports.
Yes.
But if we can go electrical, imagine if half of our trucks are electrical.
Yes.
We won't be affected by any fluctuation of the price on the market, or in the national market. And with all the statistics the Northern Corridor Secretariat has, they can even attract foreign investors to assemble trucks in the region because they have all the data. And the manufacturers, what they care most is who will buy their products. So I think countries need to sit together and strategize how to attract foreign investment in terms of green transport. And then we will achieve the ambitious target to cut the cost of the transport, maybe from $1.2 to maybe 0.8. That is ideal. And I'm sure there are so many international organizations willing to support that initiative. And when you see the progress of e-mobility, when you see there are some trucks with the capacity to drive up to 400 kilometers without charging. It means you can cross 2 countries, from Kigali maybe to close to Kampala. Then, I think as a secretariat, they can start small, and I'm sure it will be achieved. I'm sure some countries will lag behind, but that's how development works. There is a kickoff, and then rest will follow. Another area is much of the Northern Corridor focus on like connecting countries to the ports, but domestic trades should also be looked at it from a strategic angle, especially cross-border trades. Because if you see, for instance, let's take an example of, when a truck crosses from Uganda to Rwanda or from Rwanda to DRC, those are domestic, like transaction.
Yes.
But they are still using the same facility, the Northern Corridor has put. They are using the same legal framework. So the harmonization of cross-border trades with the Northern Corridor strategy should also be focused on, so that the citizen receive goods and services at a very cheaper cost. Well, that's the whole essence. Whatever organizations are doing, whatever countries are initiating, if any initiative is not aiming to cut the costs, it is still a problem. And that can help to reduce the cost of goods in countries.
Yes, and Dr. John also spoke about bridging that gap in terms of the percentage of the goods that are being exported versus those that are being imported. Rwanda has really put a lot of effort into exporting goods and services, especially made in Rwanda products, and we have come a long way in terms of increasing that percentage of goods that are being exported rather than us doing more of the importing. How, in your opinion, how far have we come in terms of that, and is there more improvement to be done, and how can that be achieved?
Well, there is a lot of improvement, but the big part of it is beyond what the Northern Corridor can contribute. But yeah, let me elaborate a little bit on that. If you see the global economy, we are experiencing now a changing of the production shifts. In 70s, 80s, the production concentration was in Asia and around the China, Singapore, Malaysia. And so now, with the economic growth of those countries, investors are shifting their focus on where to produce better, or even where to produce more. Now, if countries especially East African countries, are positioned themselves to be a destination for investment, that will obviously trigger the exports. So if we are promoting exports, we are putting all the regulation to attract foreign investors, obviously we have more exports. Now, the problem is, if we produce, are we accessing the global market? The market can be Asia, but also the regional market is also. And the Northern Corridor is one of these bridges which can help. With the Northern Corridor, you can export to Kenya, you can export to Uganda, you can export to South Sudan, you can even go to Ethiopia. And those countries I've just named, we are talking about close to 400 million people.
Yes.
So that's a very big market. And I'm sure if all our policies are harmonized, the legal framework is clear, it will help the domestic promotion. Every country is fighting to increase its production for exports. We've been consuming a lot of Kenyan product. It's a very good thing. They are also in that move to produce more, to create more jobs. Uganda is doing the same. And if we have a very simple network of exchanging goods and services, then we can fight poverty in the region. I know Ethiopia is not an active member of the Northern Corridor, but if Northern Corridor can attract also Ethiopia on that big market, I'm sure it will help to promote domestic production for export, because each country, if you see geographically, each country can specialize in its own products. We have some product, especially agriculture product, where no one can beat us. Uganda the same, Kenya the same, Ethiopia the same, South Sudan the same. So I think that exchange of goods and services can promote domestic production and create more wealth for the people in these different countries.
Thank you very much for that. Back to you, Dr. John. In terms of regional integration and policy, the Northern Corridor heavily relies on cooperation among member states, like we have mentioned. How well is policy harmonization progressing in that aspect, and where do you see room for improvement?
Yeah, thank you, Martina, once more. Honestly, I tend to think that the future in Africa, especially in East Africa, is bright. The population is coming to terms with the fact that our success is interwoven as a people, and that we cannot be separated and succeed. So that is, to me, is a great perception. Another second level of progress, which is actually something institutions like the Northern Corridor is doing, is to create a framework for which our leaders engage on issues that affect people other than political issues. And Northern Corridor is one of those institutions that bring member states together to discuss issues that affect people. So in terms of the level of progress, in terms of harmonization of policies, to a great extent, trade facilitation regulations and policies are more or less, they have been harmonized. I can say, like for example, as my colleague mentioned here, one of the successful interventions we have had is the application of simplified commercial regime, which is to promote cross-border trade. And the biggest beneficiary is actually the border of Goma-Rubavu. Because, you know, now goods below $2,000, you don't need to go through a custom process. And you've seen ground barrier and petit, you see people, young people coming with their bicycles, they come and pick goods on this side, they take them the other side, and the vice versa. And they only get a small paper. You don't have to go through a custom process. That is an application of the COMESA simplified trade regime. And now that border is the second largest business border in Africa, second business border in Africa. And it's something we have always said, you know, what is happening in Goma, Rubavu is a sign that people are actually different from countries, that the borders that were drawn by the whites are no longer separating us. So regardless of political issues at countries level, people continue, nations continue to do business and live together, which is something that I think is giving us hope that African integration is real.
Yes.
I'm proud of Rwanda because you've done a great job in marketing your products. I went to school in Boston, and one day I was walking in Massachusetts, in the street of Cambridge, and getting to a coffee shop, you know, I wanted to take a cappuccino, and I was told, which coffee will you want to take? So on the display was Ethiopian, Rwandese, and Jamaican coffee.
Nice.
And then, so I was so proud, you know, that, you know, so I called my colleague, that was in 2020, that, you know what I'm doing here? I'm choosing Rwandan coffee on the counter just because I'm a proud member of the Northern Corridor. So ideally speaking, to a great extent, we are doing so well when it comes to trade facilitation integration. Yes, there is so much to be done in consuming our own products, because until we improve on consuming our own products, we shall continue to be a market for outsiders, which is not good for us. We should be able to eat what we produce, and produce what we eat. That should be the first agenda, so that our population relies on itself. So our policies should be geared towards encouraging our people to produce and satisfy their needs. And then what goes to the international market is a surplus of what they are not able to consume, but they have produced more. If we do that, then we shall have reduced relying on import, and then we continue to build on our export. And that will bring us at par with the world. To me, that is where we need to go. On transport policies, you know, transport policies are more local in nature. They keep emerging.
Yes.
And so we cannot say the harmonization is going to be 100%. Trade facilitation, trade policies are more or less the same right now in the region, but transport policies, because you have the traffic police, you have the ministry, you have the road agencies, but to a great extent, like the axle load control is now harmonized in the region. So a truck that is loaded in Mombasa does not have to offload when it goes to Uganda, or does not have to offload when it enters Rwanda, which means that is a great achievement, that you can load at one station up to your destination. That is very important. Another one is, okay, there are small things like this. The side you keep when you're driving, like Rwanda, is different with the rest of, as in East Africa. That poses challenge when it comes to road safety, because sometimes drivers cross and they forget that they're supposed to keep on side. We have seen circumstances where we have had carnage that's on the road that relates to this. This is something that I encourage political leaders to engage and see how to deal with this situation. I know we can be very brave and make tough decisions. Just like in Rwanda here, you guys decided to be English-speaking overnight, and everybody was able to speak English when Rwanda was a French-speaking country. So these are tough decisions that need to be made by leaders in the interest of people. One of the things we also do, as my colleague mentioned here, is the cross-border trade, cross-border efficiency, border crossing efficiency. You know, we have, this was tried to be addressed through OSBPs. The construction of OSBPs is to integrate the border agencies, such that when you cross the border, you do not have to deal with agencies differently. Once you are cleared on one side, you just go through on the other side without having to be checked. So we know, yes, from Malaba and Busia, we have OSBPs in place, and Gatuna, we have an OSBP in place, and then Lakonise OSBP at Rubavu. The infrastructure is in place, the policies are in place. But then the spirit of policy, you know, you can have the letter, but the spirit has to also to be advanced. We continue to be demagogues in the way we do business, but that requires a certain level of sensitization, training, and that's why we continue to engage our stakeholders to accept that we have to integrate, and we are here to live as one people. That's our reality. We cannot afford to hit ourselves and think we can operate in silos. And I think to a great extent, at the strategic level as governments, there's an understanding that we need to work together.
Sure.
But that has to go down through institutions and through the communities and societies. It's something we are working on, and that's why there's continuous sensitization campaigns in our countries.
Great. Back to you, Mr. Teddy. Inland water transport has been gaining a lot of attention recently. Why is this mode important for Rwanda's long-term competitiveness?
Well, the inland transport has, I would say, 3 factors, especially for Rwanda and DRC. One, if you see, I would say 70% of our border, Rwanda and DRC, is water. And the remaining 30% is by land. So far, people are relying on crossing using the land access, but water is not exploited to the maximum. And that both countries are losing opportunities to grow their economy. That's one. 2, even transport within region, like Rwanda, from western province, west to west, but the 2 extreme, southwest and then northern west. You know, connecting by road take you like 3 times the costs if you could travel by water, which means if you have the transport by water, then it will reduce the costs. And then that region is specifically, it's a touristic destination. If Rwanda can manage to have a very good water transport, then to unlock all the potential for tourism in that sector. And then the export to DRC will be much easier. So it makes completely sense from a strategic perspective. If Rwanda wants to develop, especially the western part, investing in water transport, it's a must. Otherwise, it will stay there for many years without being exploited. Well, from so long, we've had like very poor water transport system, very poor, you know.
Yeah. It wasn't a priority.
No, it was, especially transporting like the cement
Egg.
or beer.
Yeah.
But that was really limited. And you can imagine if cement can connect from the Rusizi to Rubavu, then why not people? So it's possible. So if now the situation is, by investing, it will unlock all those districts. We are talking about maybe a population of more than 3 million people living on that coast, which will have access to the water transport. The farmers will take their commodities very much easier. So the value of the agriculture produce will increase very high. Export will grow, and then tourism will grow as well.
You have anything to add, or?
On inland water?
Yes.
Yeah, certainly that's my area of interest because it's actually the third component of the Northern Corridor infrastructure. Specifically Rwanda. Rwanda actually is doing so much to promote inland water transport. And that is signified by the infrastructure development because inland water transport relies on 3 main pillars. You have to have the infrastructure in place. That's very important. You have to have the operational capacity. That means having to, cranes and the machines that handle the cargo. And then you have to have policies, the cabotage policies. So Rwanda so far, with the construction of Rubavu port, which is finished, with the boat building operation that's going on in Karunji and the development of the port and the port that's being developed at Ruzizi, Rwanda has set itself to promote the inland water transport in the Lake Kivu. The challenge is inland transportation is like the air transportation because the capacity of an airport here, of a plane to take off in this airport, there should be an equivalent airport on the other side that will accommodate the same plane.
Yes.
So the challenge is, if as much as you develop yourself here, you have the cranes, you have the infrastructure, you need to have the corresponding port capacity on the other side.
On the other side.
And so I had the opportunity to drive from here to Karunji, through Ruzizi, all the way to Rubavu. I went to Goma. I took a boat ride all the way to Bukavu. And I drove through Bugarama to Kalundu. Just look at the port.
Sure.
And I was able to tell that so much needs to be done on the other side for you to utilize your capacity. But of course, as a country, Rwanda has done its part in promoting. Now, at the Northern Corridor level, what we are doing right now is support RTDA to establish the institutional capacity because initially it was just a department. But now we have to prepare to take advantage of this infrastructure investment. And that means we have to develop the institutional capacity, the human resource capacity, and the policies. And that's why right now we have hired a TA, a technical assistant, to be actually based in RTDA to help in framing the future of inland water transportation. What is important for Rwanda, and I really want to be on record on the TV here, is the use of Lake Victoria. You know there has been historical attempts to connect Rwanda to Lake Victoria through River Kagera. And this has never borne fruit because then for you to have River Kagera, you have to have the port, you have to have the river dredged to the lake. And if this is done, then Rwanda is able to access commodities. Like now we have pipeline running from Mombasa to Kisumu. And now Uganda takes it fueled by water tankers, by fuel tankers from Kisumu to Kampala. If we are able to develop this, then Rwanda is able to make use of the same facility. So Rwanda can access its goods from Kisumu directly through Lake Victoria to Akagera, and then to the borders of Rwanda. I think this requires a concurrence between the government of Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda. And if this is done, it is going to give the government of Rwanda and the people of Rwanda a lot of alternatives in doing trade. And you're going to protect your roads by taking off the roads a lot of tankers. Fuel tankers. So it's one way I think that the government of Rwanda needs to pay attention to in promoting this development on the inland water transport. These are things I want to highlight.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Teddy, in your opinion, what are some steps that Rwanda should be able to take to be able to maximize to the fullest the economic benefits of its participation in the Northern Corridor?
Well, when you see how the economy is growing, we can't remain with those traditional way of transporting our cargoes, like using the trucks on the roads. It can't work. In the next 20 years, we'll have population will be doubling, So we need alternative, using the water, accessing the East Coast, using the railways. Those are alternative actually for the region, not only for Rwanda. If our population will be doubling, the same will be happening in Burundi, the same will be happening in DRC. So the region needs to be planning together to create those alternatives for transport. Then we will be sure that in the next 20 years, we will have like different ways of accessing the international market. By then, I expect more export than import, so we'll need more infrastructure than we have now, because imagine if the size of our road could triple, it can't work. But if you have alternative for transport, then it will work. So having alternative transport means it's a must, and then we need to have really a very solid political agreement between our neighbors, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, so that at least this joint investment can bear fruit. Otherwise, a single country can't do it. If you, let's say, railways, it can only be effective and efficient if all the member states do their role. And then the operation, even if the infrastructure is there, but it needs to be managed, and the management need to be harmonized. So there is a lot of political agreements, affiliation, and East Africa was a dream organization for this region to have that political framework where all these things can be discussed and agreed and then be implemented. Now, Northern Corridor was an initiative before even the East Africa, Rwanda joining the East Africa, but these are different mechanisms to support joint initiative and joint investment. I wish countries could invest together, because if you have joint investment, you protect the investment. But if each country is doing its own initiative, everyone will feel like, oh, I'm not concerned by what you did. So some of the initiatives, some of the projects should be have like a co-investment mechanism. Unfortunately, countries are not on the same pace of investment, but like the Lake Kivu water transport, it should be done jointly with Rwanda and DRC to make sure that on both ends you can transport, you can have that movement. But it's done on one side. It means the other side is not concerned. Same, we are talking about unlocking like our transport using the Akagera River and connect to Victoria. I wish we could have a joint investment for the three countries, Uganda and then Tanzania or Kenya, so that countries protect their common investment. Otherwise, everyone will look at their sides.
Thank you for that. Dr. John, you recently had a conversation with the Minister of Infrastructure, Honorable Dr. Jimmy Gasore, and amongst other things, you were able to discuss on the enhancement of the corridor's cargo transport, as well as strengthening partnerships in transport infrastructure development, so on and so forth. Could you maybe discuss more on the importance of having such conversations with a representative of the Rwandan government, such as the Minister of Infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you, Martina. Yeah, I was able to engage with the Honorable Minister yesterday, and this morning with the Permanent Secretary, just generally to give an overview of things we are doing and highlight on the gaps that there are where we need the government of Rwanda to come in and support. One of the major issues we discussed is the development of Naivasha ICD, and then its impact on the trade. Because now the Northern Corridor is doing the feasibility studies and engineering design, and the project will be bankable by January, out of which now an investment agreement will need to be signed by the government with the private investors, because it's a property of the government of a particular country as much as it is in Kenya. This is one issue that we discussed, and this is, to me, is close to my heart because I'm left with 4.5 years now in the office. But before I leave, I would want to see this project completed and impacting on the trade. The government of Rwanda is ready. They have already indicated there is a private investor that is on the standby. Once the project is ready, they will start actually developing. And Dr. Jimmy was quite specific on what is required of the government of Rwanda. And once it is ready, is there anything that we need to do as a government to make sure that this project takes off on time? And I think we are on the same page on that. One other thing that we discussed, and that's quite important, is the truck holding yard that we are trying to put up along Nyagatare, Rubavu Road. And that is, we discussed the traffic. The road is new, and so the traffic capacity has not yet been assessed. And, you know, transport is conditioned. You know, drivers, if they know that they will cross Katuna, they come and eat at the favorite restaurant in Kigali. You cannot convincing them to leave, to go through Mirama Hills or Kajitumba, and then they bypass the city. It will take a bit of sensitization and mindset. So it's one of the things that we discussed, that there has to be intervention geared towards diverting transportation so it doesn't have to go through the city, to relieve city of pressure and also drive down cost of doing business, because if they pass through here, they spend money, they spend time, and that is cost on transportation. And I think we agreed that a traffic survey will be conducted, and now sensitization to the private sector. Another issue that we discussed are about now that Tanzania has had some political challenges, a lot of cargo has now been diverted to Mombasa. And so there is a bit of a jam in terms of traffic, and the more traffic that comes through the port, the more non-tariff barriers are rising. So the minister emphasized the need for proactive engagement by the Northern Corridor to intervene whenever there is a challenge to the drivers. And so we are set. My field supervisors are stationed now at the port and in most truck holding yards or nodes, so that the new drivers, the new trucks are not affected by certain interventions. So Northern Corridor is prepared to collaborate with the government of Rwanda, the custom officers in Mombasa, and the ministry that normally calls us whenever there's a challenge. And we are ready to handle this. And that, to me, as they say, one man's poison is another man's delicacy.
Yes.
What's happening in Dar es Salaam is actually favoring us in Mombasa, and we do not want to throw away that opportunity. We want those drivers that are going to experience our services for the first time to stay after that. And I think we agree to do business in that direction. And there are a number of other administrative matters where the government of Rwanda, but I must say, generally speaking, the government of Rwanda has been very supportive of the corridor. And when I came to the office, the government of Rwanda used to have shortfall in its payment, because, you know, the payment contribution towards the corridor is done through levy. So if your cargo goes down, and then you'll have to pay, supplement it through the treasury payment. Now the cargo has grown so much that it's able to pay, and has surplus that is going to be carried forward. And we are using some of those now to develop infrastructure in the country. Yes. So I think we are in good books, and we are on the right track with the government of Rwanda and in relation to trade facilitation and Northern Corridor function of seamless mobility of goods. So I think those are the things that we discussed, and many more. As you know, this is an emerging area that a lot of issues keep coming up, but that keeps us busy and also purposeful, you know, for that matter. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Teddy, we are getting close to the end of the conversation, but briefly, looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Rwanda, especially within the Northern Corridor framework?
You know, the Northern Corridor offers a lot of opportunity for Rwanda, especially as a country of a transit country, you know, for Burundi and the DRC, but also the destination country for our trucks. And if the Northern Corridor is offering the best service in terms of like reducing the non-tariff barrier, then that's where Rwanda will be using, and especially with this Naivasha project. If Naivasha project matures, then they will be like reducing let's say the distance by 600 kilometers. It's a lot actually. Money-wise, it is reducing a lot of money in terms of transport. So if we get this project maturing, it will reduce the cost and then speed up the process. Because one of the challenge actually the transporters has, when you speak to them, much as both Central and Northern Corridor try to reduce the time, but there is a lot of unpredictability. When you send your truck there, you are not sure if, let's say, if it's 3 days, sometimes it goes to 5 days, sometimes 3 days. So it's hard for them to predict. And if a business person can't predict, it means even the money the spending on the truck is hard to predict. So the future for this Northern Corridor, at least if they can manage to harmonize all these processes and allow people to to create a very predictable environment, then it can even attract more investors.
Thank you. And lastly, very shortly, what is your message, Dr. John, to Rwandan institutions, private sector players, and the youth who interact with the corridor?
Okay. Generally, we are happy with the trend Rwanda is taking. It's focused on production and export. Would also encourage the government of Rwanda to continue with this trend and be responsive to the needs when we raise them. The private sector, yes, we would like them to appreciate that, as mentioned by my colleague, that trade is an unpredictable discourse because you have a lot of factors, variables that we not control. You need to be patient with us, but make sure you keep constant contact with Northern Corridor, because the moment any challenge reaches us, we always report to the concerned authorities. And oftentimes, issues have been resolved in less than 3 hours whenever they are reported to us. That is to say the private sector has to be hopeful and has to collaborate with the Northern Corridor in everything, in all the challenges that they face along the corridor. We are ready to serve them, and we are there for them. The government of Rwanda, we continue to encourage the government to develop policies that are trade-friendly and to use the port of Mombasa because it's a dream port. Is the best port actually in the continent. It's the busiest, the most efficient port. And that is not to say Dar es Salaam is not a good port, because we are serving the same population. So we just need to engage in policies that are liberal enough to allow private sector to make choices without necessarily being forced. And maybe the government of Rwanda, I want to encourage the Ministry of Transport to engage with the Ministry of EAC Affairs to address the bottleneck at Taveta Olili, which has been causing a lot of struggle for the Rwandan traders, because trucks take so much time at the border of Tanzania and Kenya to transit to Rwanda. This is something that can be addressed at the EAC level. That is, to me, that kind of homework I would give the government of Rwanda to try to engage with their counterpart to resolve this. Otherwise, I'm happy to be here today and to have shared perspective on the issues of trade facilitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Dr. John Deng, as well as Mr. Teddy Kaberuka. Thank you for being part of the conversation, as well as sharing your insights in terms of the Northern Corridor and its contributions to trade here in Rwanda, and how much more we can be able to do in terms of collaboration. So thank you for your insights.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
for having
Thank
us.
you very much.
Yes, we were able to discuss innovations from digital systems, inland ports, from safety reforms, to be able to also discuss future railway propositions. And this is much more that is being talked about, and we cannot wait to continue to see the progress in terms of connectivity, cooperation, as well as innovation. And that was it. That was the conversation that we had. Thank you to our guests once again, and thank you to each one of you who was able to tune in to join the conversation. And we'll see you guys next time.